Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review the newest Transformers movie, Transformers: The Last Knight. Now, I'll admit, I've only seen the first three. I did not see Age of Extinction, so there's potentially some things that I missed out from that film in building up to making sense of what happens in this one. But I did recognize a lot of people because this movie had way too many characters in it, and it was way too long, and a lot of excess, and a lot of bad things, and really didn't like this movie. But I'm going to talk about it anyway, and this is exactly what you would expect from Michael Bay. And to talk about Michael Bay's directing in this film, the storytelling is really choppy, really uneven, and not handled very well. There's long points of characters not being in there, giving you plenty of time to forget that they're even in the movie or why they're there to begin with. And then there's characters that just disappear. It's like, what happened to that character? Oh, it doesn't matter. And just how the story is portrayed is done in such a clunky way, and the fact that the story wasn't very coherent to begin with just makes it all even worse. The pacing, I'll have to say, this movie never really slows down long enough to be like a drag and boring for 2.5 hours. But there's a lot of stuff in this that should have been cut, and this film would have moved a lot smoother. And I'll talk about that, especially when it comes to the writing. The tone, this movie is so tone deaf. It's not even funny, like most of the jokes in this film, and just so bad. Like, there's some really intense, powerful scenes. Like the opening scene where it's in the Middle Ages is going so well, and everything's so set up nicely, and then it has some unbelievably untimely, stupid humor in it that just cuts all tension and ruins the scene. And that happens in almost every single scene in this movie that could have been really intense and powerful. And that is just bad directing right there. And from making you feel and this film affecting you on some level, didn't really. Sorry, there's maybe one little sequence where the young girl watches her protector transformer die, and that's really sad. They give that away in the trailer, and that's about it. And because they don't do a very good job of making you emotionally attached to a whole lot of characters, except for maybe one other scene, and I'm not going to give it away because it would be giving away some plot, but it's basically all riding on the actor portraying the character. And overall, this is doesn't hit you on an emotional level really at all. And then with the effects, now I have to say, over 3/4 of this movie has some fantastic action sequences, fantastic special effects, and up until the very end, where it becomes so bogged down with so much effects that you can't even tell what the hell's going on in the fights, the action sequences in this are pretty damn awesome. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised by that, and I was enjoying it for the most part. There are some things throughout that pop up that aren't the greatest in terms of the effects and the action and how the action is shot, but overall, up until the very end of the film, they do a really good job of balancing that and creating intense, awesome action sequences. Would have even been better if you actually cared about the characters, right? And in terms of the camera work and the framing and everything, the cinematography by Jonathan Sela is actually pretty well done, and it looks really cool. And there's not an overuse of any kind of, like, the slow mo's really well used in a lot of this film. The Dutch angles are well used in a lot of this film, and brings a real, this is a distinct aesthetic, and that's a good thing. I appreciate that, and as long as it's not super overwhelming, which it has been in some of the other Transformers movies, I didn't think it was as overwhelming in this one, which was a good thing, and that's an improvement. Alrighty, now to talk about the actual writing, which is written by a committee, because there's 3 writers and 4 people doing the story, and they're all a bunch of idiots. Because, first of all, the actual story is so convoluted and ridiculous, it's hard to follow everything and everyone who's contributing to the story. which is really annoying. The mythology they set up with in medieval times and stuff like that, I thought that was really cool. And all the exposition that Anthony Hopkins gives about that, if it wasn't Anthony Hopkins, I might not have liked it as much, but I liked it. I thought it was done well, and fleshing out this whole story of the mythology and the knights and everything involved, and that was cool. And really bringing in Cybertron and stuff like that, I thought was cool. There was so much potential with the story here, but there's too much going on for it to hone in on anything and do it really well. There's legitimately a sequence that they probably spent tons of money filming 30 seconds in World War II. Why? Why? Just to throw it in the trailer? It's like, oh my god, Transformers fighting Nazis! It's like, yeah, you see it for 2 seconds. Spoiler alert. Just so that you're not upset when you go see the movie and don't see them fighting Nazis. The characters. Legitimately, half the characters in this movie should have been cut. Most of them are grating and annoying. Dialogue in this is mostly horrendous. And Anthony Hopkins' character was interesting, and I liked him, and he might have had some bad dialogue, but sure did Anthony Hopkins sell it and actually make it sound fun, because he was having the most fun of anybody in this movie. And Kate Yeager would be an interesting, good-hearted main character if he didn't say terrible things. Just terrible, sexist, racist things, and it's just like, why? Why? It's so much dialogue in these Transformers movies that just come off so horrendous and so untimely in so many different parts of this film. I don't think I barely chuckled, unless it was Anthony Hopkins this whole entire movie. And mostly it was because of shock factor that he was like cursing and stuff like that and saying dude and stuff like that. And that's nothing on the writing. That's cheap shock factor of shock casting Anthony Hopkins in your movie and giving him outrageous dialogue and people being entertained by like Anthony Hopkins of all people saying these things. And that's just not good. Like, that's a circumstance. It's not something that you planned out and was a good choice. This movie did frustrate me a lot because I did see quite a bit of potential in this film with something really cool, and a lot of these Transformers movies have so much potential, but they waste so much time on the human characters when these movies should be about Transformers. And why introduce new characters like this little girl who I liked her at the beginning of the film, literally disappears for more than half of the movie in between. It's like, okay, why were you here to begin with? Actually, I don't know, to be perfectly honest. And then she's completely wasted in the third act, and it's just like, why? Just so much stuff introduced and wasted. And just to wrap things up, the music by Steve Jablonsky was good. It was well fitting. It wasn't super memorable score, but I liked it. The production design, that's cool. What they do, the design of Cybertron, all the different Transformers with their unique looks and everything like that, even though a lot of them are racial stereotypes and are really offensive, but overall the production design's really cool. And there's a 3-headed Transformer dragon in this movie. It's really cool. Who could say no to that? That was actually pretty cool. There's pretty cool things in this, and then they just completely waste it and don't make the best of it. Acting. Anthony Hopkins is the only one who seems to be having a good time. Really enjoyed his performance. Thought he was a lot of fun. Everyone else is yelling too much. Mark Wahlberg needs a good director to really bolster him. Michael Bay is not a good actor's director, and Mark Wahlberg comes off being whiny and yelly through most of the film. Laura Haddock, who plays the British woman who he supposedly falls in love with, which is completely unbelievable, and it's just be like, oh, we're both here, we're both chosen ones, let's get together. Completely wasted. She has potential for a lot of chemistry and charisma, and it's just blah. I did really like Isabella Moner, who's the young girl. She had some really powerful moments and did a really good job for the short amount of time and meaningful amount of time she was on screen. Overall, wasted potential. I was able to sit through it, and that's why I'm not going to give this movie an F, along with some cool action sequences. This movie wasn't something where it was like I was sitting there like, when's this movie gonna end? There was a lot of stuff in it, and it was just like I wish this movie didn't have so much stuff in it. Overall, I'm gonna give Transformers: The Last Night a D.